Time for some more kitchen table astronomy with Hampshire College astronomer Dr. Salman Hameed, the head of Kainaat Studios. And we also have a Hampshire College connection that we're going to talk about. And Kainaat Studios is going to talk about because the next couple times we talk to you, we will talk to you from Pakistan because Kainaat is the cosmos of South Asia. And Salman Hameed is the Carl Sagan of South Asia. And we'll get to all of that. And we're also going to talk about Star Trek.
Yeah, I should mention this was not scheduled to be talked about, but
because we do a lot of pop culture. We did Pluribus last week. You're on the board of Amherst Cinemas. We talk a lot about movies and film, but Star Trek, you're a lifelong Trekkie. I'm a big Star Trek guy, especially Next Generation.
Oh yeah, the Next Generation was great, and so I mean, I'm not sort of like all in Trekkie because it's a little embarrassing, but I did. Yeah, Next Generation was actually really good. Star Trek, the Next Generation, but here is the thing. We may have talked about it not on the radio but separately, how much I hate J.J. Abrams' interpretation of Star Trek, which is not different from any other thing, because Star Trek, what made it good was its philosophical take on things and its political take on things, because it was never great on special effects. But what it was great was about providing a particular type of vision of the future. And by the way, if there is a time that we need a vision of the future, it's right now.
Yeah. Everybody that complains about why did Star Trek decide it's going to go woke, Star Trek invented woke on TV.
That is right. And so in the original one, Uhura was the first major sort of like African-American character that was there.
And she almost quit the show. And who convinced her not to quit? Freaking Martin Luther King Jr. himself.
Right. So, and also at the height of the Cold War, you had sort of like, a Russian on the on the deck of the Star Trek Enterprise. And this was all deliberate because Roddenberry, of course, the creator of Star Trek, he actually wanted to bring in these issues in a TV series separately, but he kept on getting no. You cannot bring, for example, interracial issues in the 1960s on television. And so he said, well, how about it's in space? And people are like, oh, this is sort of like, totally fictional. Yeah. So that was incredible. And the first interracial kiss, and that was a very controversial episode at the time. That all took place on Star Trek. And then in the Next Generation, it really explored a lot more of philosophical issues. Great science fiction is in there. They got great writers in there. And they corrected some of the things that were problematic in the original Star Trek. So in the original Star Trek, Captain Kirk was too gung-ho about sort of like, interfering in the affairs of other planetary species and also telling them about what is right. Mm-hmm. So very colonial thinking. So it was woke in the sense of like, it did a lot of good things, but also there were problematic aspects in there. But because of a lot of post-colonial studies that were coming up in the 1970s in particular, by the time Star Trek The Next Generation came out in the late 1980s, they actually incorporated that, and then Captain Picard was much more sensitive to these kind of issues. So that was great, all of that. Right, and then of course, as I mentioned, sort of like there were Star Trek Voyager was great as a woman captain in there, but then J.J. Abrams, who actually famously said he never watched any of the Star Trek, but he was directing and producing the newer film rebooted versions of it, and so you basically strip out all of the philosophy or all of the issues that Star Trek was dealing with, and you're left with action, and so there was no difference to that. And what I was surprised, and now recently there have been a couple of good Star Trek series, but there is a new one out. I've seen 2 episodes of it. I think 2 episodes are out on Paramount Plus, and it is called Starfleet Academy. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the trailer, it looks like more like, oh, it's just going to be about action. But I was surprised. I saw it with my 12-year-old who's sometimes forced to watch Star Trek The Next Generation.
My 12-year-old also forced to watch it. Not a big fan. Loves Star Wars. Not a big into any Star Trek stuff.
But he loved Starfleet Academy.
Uh-huh.
And in fact, he was like, oh, I want to see the second episode. And what I was surprised about, I was like, okay, fine, it's going to be this is a gateway drug. Fine, like, they go like, and then we can go back and watch the Next Generation. But what I was really surprised about was that Starfleet Academy, this is the new show. It is set, it's like the new Starfleet Academy, it's a university in that sense, and it is rebooting after something bad had happened about 100 years before the timeline of the show. And they've really lost their values of what they teach in the academia. And so, considering what has been happening in the United States in the last year or so, or I would say actually more than a year or so, you can even think about last couple of decades where a lot of the corporatization of higher education, and also much more explicitly the crackdown on Gaza protests, for example, including here at UMass. And that was under President Biden, by the way, not under President Trump. And then last year, where President Trump also cracked down on universities, and the response of the universities has been to sort of like figure out how can we save our heads in some sense and compromise, or how can we in some ways appease. Now, I don't want to lump everything in there, and I know decisions are hard, and some people have actually stood up. Wesleyan president of Wesleyan University is actually a great example. But I'm not naming names, for example, Columbia University, who also just capitulated, right? And a lot of these things are under the guise of censorship, or under the guise of free speech, or under the guise of controlling anti-Semitic speech. A lot of the times it's about controlling dissent, or sort of like, suppressing dissent. But universities, I mean, idealized version of university is a place where you get challenged. It's a place where you get to experience opposite views and intellectually engage with them, right? I mean, those are the best classes, are where you get challenged. Because if you don't get challenged in a university, where else are you going to get challenged?
Yeah.
And that ethos, in some ways, I mean, if you talk about universities today, I mean, what is happening in Minneapolis? I mean, I would have thought that right now there would be protests all across campuses in the US. But they're not. And I'm like, come on, like, this is the time. Not just, and again, there are protests happening in Northampton, in Amherst. I mean, there are town protests and things like that. But universities are the place where, like, these type of things that should take place. And hopefully they will. But right now, the universities are a little sort of like, okay, how can we not stick our head out, because otherwise we will get shut down, right?
In fairness, a lot of universities are still on break.
Well, that is true, but I hope, but in general, I mean, I'm talking about sort of like in the last year or so as well. I mean, it's been like sort of like okay, how can we keep our heads down? And Starfleet Academy, that's where, coming back to Star Trek, it is tapping into that particular aspect, that what is a university for? How can it deal with intellectual aspects? How can it deal with political aspects? How could it deal with activism? And this is exactly what Star Trek originally was about, sort of like, dealing with what is in the culture, within the society. How can you challenge those type of things, those kind of things that have become a little bit of a norm, and you want to challenge those, like, or are norms, and you want to challenge those. And so, to me, surprising element, I've only seen 2 episodes. There is Holly Hunter in it, Paul Giamatti in it.
Nice.
There's another person, Britt Marlin, who's been actually written and starred in some of the sci-fi, good, thoughtful sci-fi as well. So that's what Starfleet Academy is. I think it's pretty entertaining. It's good. But ultimately, it is dealing with a theme of our time, and it's challenging what a good university should be like.
And to tie it into the universities, first of all, Paul Giamatti's, I think, father founded the Italian department at Mount Holyoke. Second of all, Eugene Rod Roddenberry, the son of Gene Roddenberry, Star Trek creator, Hampshire alum.
And a producer of this show.
Yeah.
And
right.
so I think that's a local Hampshire connection as well. Woohoo!
Now, a little bit of actual astronomy. You found a galaxy that has no stars? Or you maybe didn't find it.
I did not find it. I would find a galaxy that does have stars. Come
Those
on.
are a lot easier to find.
Right. So this is, for the first time, it looks like that astronomers have found sort of like a cloud of gas. I mean, astronomers have found these kind of clouds, but never spread out thin enough that you can detect the gas. And so it's hydrogen gas. But usually there are still some stars that are in there. And in this galaxy, they have looked and have found no stars. And two things about that. This particular cloud is close to a relatively nearby galaxy called M94, M for Messier, that's for the catalog of objects. And it's about roughly 14 million light years away. And astronomers, so one thing, it's nearby galaxy. And the second thing I wanted to mention about this is, well, it is found by Chinese astronomers using actually what is now the largest single aperture radio telescope. It's called 500 meter aperture spherical telescope, or FAST.
Good acronym.
And they found it in 2023. And the reason I'm mentioning that is, this is also part of the changing world, because now more and more we see discoveries made by telescopes in China or Chinese astronomers, and so on and so forth. And this year, I think, or in the next year or two, they're also going to have launch their own space telescope as well. So we are already seeing this change in the world, where we're not just talking about NASA discoveries, but we are also talking about something that was coming from China. So they were looking at a few gas clouds around this galaxy M94, which is a spiral galaxy, and the ninth one, and they were going cloud 1, cloud 2, cloud 3, and this ninth one happened to be cloud 9.
Oh, wow.
There you go. And so they found this, and this was a little different, because there was it is not a lot of hydrogen gas in it, but it's very spread out. And then they got time on the Hubble Space Telescope, and so this is where collaborations still come in. Those are important. And they really tried to find stars in this cloud of gas, because if you have clouds, usually there are pockets that collapse, and then you have stars in it. So you have clouds in a way which have very few stars in it. But in this one, they kept on looking for it, and there is just no stars. But it looks like, I mean, it expects that you would have a dark matter halo around it, but it is keeping the gas in there, but no stars.
It has a black hole at the center like most galaxies?
No, not at this level. No, there is nothing in it. It's just hydrogen gas sitting in it, right? So this is actually unusual, because this is, in some sense, you can think about that when in the universe, you would have a lot of hydrogen gas and floating around, and then you would have stars in it, but you would also have places where you would just have hydrogen gas, but you expect that eventually there would be pockets that would collapse and produce stars. But in this case, it didn't happen.
And it's not because it's so young that the stars haven't formed yet, or is it?
No, it's just too spread out.
Wow.
It just doesn't. It hasn't collapsed in. So this is the first example of something like this, which is spread out enough. I mean, you can find small clouds of just gas, but this is big enough. In fact, it's about 4,000 light years across, but no stars in it. And I should mention, this is a very hard thing to find, actually, no stars, because you are just looking at, in the visible light, you are just looking at this part of the sky, and you're trying to rule out all the stars that those are not part of this particular cloud. So it's a very hard problem. But recently a paper came out in which they said, well, this is about 1 million solar masses. So meaning to say, astronomers measure mass, for example, with how many suns you can have in there. So it's about 1 million solar masses of gas and no stars. It's just gas. So this, and this may be primordial gas, meaning to say, because you enrich hydrogen gas, or you enrich what astronomers call an interstellar medium. You enrich it by when stars explode, when stars sort of give back process elements inside the star, and then it enriches the gas, because in the Big Bang you only had hydrogen and helium pretty much. all the other elements, other than lithium, were pretty much formed inside stars. So carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, or iron, or any other things were either formed inside stars or in exploding stars. So what is in there? If there are no stars, you may just have this pristine gas, just hydrogen and helium, left over doing nothing. Right? And so now there may be a possibility that if you can find there are these far, far away, these really active black holes. Those objects are called quasars. These were early in the universe, and those are like very sharp, sort of like brightness. They have like they're very bright, but are like almost like point-like. And so astronomers are going to try to find if there are some quasars behind this, because in some sense that will be like a flashlight going through this hydrogen gas, and then potentially astronomers can try to find, are there any other elements other than hydrogen and helium in this cloud? Mm-hmm. So this is really exciting discovery. This is the first time astronomers have found basically a cloud which looks like it is surrounded by dark matter halo. We don't see dark matter either,
right,
but we just see this spread out gas, and it has to be very pristine, and we can only detect it in radio waves, because hydrogen gas, which by the way is, I know we are out of time, but I just mentioned, I just find it so cool that we can detect hydrogen gas simply by, there is an electron, hydrogen has a proton and an electron, and the spin of the electron and the proton is both up is high energy state, and up and down is low energy state. So the way astronomers detect it is the spins are both up, and sometimes it goes back down, up and down. And when it happens, when the electron spins, flips, it sends a little bit of light. And that light is detected in radio waves. Mm-hmm. So we just detect, so that's how we detect hydrogen gas sitting out in space doing nothing. And so astronomers from China used 500 aperture meter spherical telescope, fast, and they called this cloud. Cloud 9, it's sort of like its name of what it was, but they also called it RELIC, Reionization Limited H1 cloud.
I like it Cloud 9 because it's just like chilling out there doing nothing.
Yes.
And that's kind of what I want to do. I want to be a galaxy filled with hydrogen doing nothing. No stars. It's like an introvert galaxy.
Not being disturbed at all. I don't think you would like that.
I would like it for a long time. And then I'd get bored. I'd create a star eventually.
Yeah, you would want to go, and you don't even want to live in the Earth, going a few 30,000 light years away from the center of the Milky Way. You want to be at the center of the Milky Way where all the action is.
Well, we'll be checking in with the action with you from Pakistan over the next couple of weeks and hear about some of the exciting stuff that you are inaugurating in the world of astronomy in your home nation of Pakistan.
Well, thank you. We'll keep in touch about this.